Hi, everybody. How you doing? Hey, Mike and Geezer and Junior and William Rizzo. How you doing? Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Let's see. Michigan, huh? Okay. Joining from chilly Chicago. Boy, it was pretty cool here too. It was about 36 degrees Fahrenheit when I got up. I don't know what that is Celsius. Hi, Desmo. How you doing? Let's do this, okay? I'm for doing it. Got on my Culpa. I had to send it in for service, and actually, I got service and an overhaul on it. Parmigiani has their service center in Miami, and so does FP Jorn. So for some reason, I guess Miami is a very central place. I'd think it'd be in New York, which is closer, but Miami works. And there were no hurricanes or God knows what else. Oh boy. Anyway, hi Dirk, how you doing? 81 in the Florida Keys this morning. You live in the Florida Keys, huh? Oh boy, I tell you, I used to live in Gainesville. I taught at the University of Florida, and boy, the Keys that's a whole different lifestyle down there. That's very cool. Well, listen, guys, here's what I wanted to talk about today. We can get started. Hi, Clam. And so let's do this. We're be smoked out by the fires in California. Yeah, that's California, Washington, Oregon. I got kids and grandkids in Oregon and California, and I worry about them all the time. So well, nothing much you can do. 23 degrees in London. Oh, that's pretty cool. Is that Geezer? Is that Celsius or Fahrenheit? Celsius. Okay. That's not, it's pretty comfortable. At least I understand. Okay, doke. Hey, Raj, how you doing? Okay, doke. This is what I thought it'd be worth talking about today. We're in the sort of the middle of the Grand Prix. The first, there's really sort of three steps. The first one is when they ask everyone who would like to, is to send in their watches to be judged. And there's something like a 500 Swiss franc fee. And, hey, Hugh, how you doing? Gee whiz. Okay. So anyway, the three stages are: the first one is they have the entries, and the second stage is after the entries they have what they call nominated. They used to call them pre-selected, nominated. I think a better name would be finalists, because that's what they are. And so they take 6 watches from each category. Now, if there are just a few watches in the category, there's a very good chance. I think some of them had they had like eight entries, and so your chances of getting to be pre-selected are pretty good. Hi, Indrajit. Hi, Indrajit. How you doing, man? And flipping Zippo. And then the final stage is in November, when they have the announcements. It's sort of like a big Academy Award ceremony, and they give out the they give out the fingers to the winners. The different awards with the golden. I don't know why they have it. It's something like that. So anyway, now there are a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the whole thing is rigged," and yada yada yada. And I've always wondered, if a company like Rolex doesn't enter a watch, that doesn't mean that the that somebody's rigged the awards. It means that uh, Rolex has chosen not to participate. And I think this is sort of some of the sense. Well, it must be rigged because Rolex isn't in there. And what happens is a lot of different things. So anyway, that's what I wanted to sort of kick around. Is it the case that the whole thing is rigged, and so it's just a way for the Grand Prix to raise money, or is it a real horse race? And uh, the I know a guy who was one of the judges, a guy who is a master watchmaker. In fact, he's a Rolex service. I mean, he does Rolex service. He's up north, and so he did it for a number of years. And I talked to him a lot about it. I said, "Is there any rigging going on?" And he said, for the most part, no. You've got this is. He said there probably is some. I guess some kind of untoward influence, and but overall, there I can't see it. Let me tell you why. First of all, a company as powerful as Rolex, um, they put in two watches back in 2007 and they lost. Period. Uh, and I think what Rolex and some of these other companies have realized is that you got some really tough competition. Now you can advertise until you're blue in the face, but when a number of experts, which include watchmakers and watch journalists and watch collectors and all of these other people that make up the judges, when they say, well, it's not quite as good as this one, then you lose. And I think what happens is that what people are upset about is that a lot of the awards go to against the stereotype that they have of a watch and watches in general. And there have been times I got to admit I have no idea why they chose one watch over another. So, but that doesn't mean the whole thing is rigged. It just means that there's something that they were looking for that they found wanting. I'll put it that way. I think it was in 2016, 2 years ago, one of the biggest blow-ups happened in a category they had called the sports category. And I remember Ulysse Nardine had this incredible thing that looked like the rigging on a yacht or something, and all of this other really cool watch, and it was very expensive. I think it was over $100,000. And then Eberhard had a watch, sports watch. It was a diver, I think, and it was like $2,500 something like that. And the other ones that they had in there were all more expensive and so forth. Well, the Eberhard won, and people say, "Well, what happened?" So did I, because at the time, my friend, the watchmaker, was on that particular subcommittee that did the judgment. So I asked him, I said, "How in the world does this Eberhard that had an ETA movement, as a base, how did they win?" And he explained it. He said, "Well, the jury went and looked at this, and they looked at some of the prices of some of these other ones that were just astronomical. And here is Eberhard, who did a perfectly good job of making a diver. It had an ETA, but all of the things that Eberhard did, all of the complications that they added and so forth, it was as good as any of these other ones." And so it was sort of like, well, that was unexpected. But the fact that you could have unexpected things like that happen, I think, is something that shows, you're not dealing really with a lot of rigging. A little company like Harboring 2 has won 4 awards. I mean, that's huge for any company. And well, you say, well, if the thing is rigged, if it's rigged, why would they, it's like Richard and Marie harboring in their dog Spot, that makes up harboring too. They only make a few hundred a year, and they charge like between $4,000 and $5,000, which is nothing for what amounts to about as close to a totally handmade watch as you can get. And I say that in evidence of, look, man, how you going to rig it? You got these companies with zillions of dollars. Now, granted, I do think that there's some phony baloney categories, and one of them I think is the iconic. What does that mean, iconic? It mean, to me, it means you ran out of ideas, and so you go and you try to get something to look like something you had done earlier. I don't know. So, but overall, I just don't think so. Hi, Hans and Brick City. How you guys doing? Andres, how are you? Lee, good to see you. Watch and pray. How you doing, man? Oh, okay. So anyway, so this is that's sort of the way I look at it. I'm not saying that there isn't some kind of shenanigans going on, but I don't think there are that many. They say, what about the judges? The judges change. There's you got to take a look at the criteria. Most people don't even bother to read who the judges are or the criteria they have for judges, but they start pontificating on something with absolutely no basis in fact. And that's what bothers me more than anything else with just about everything with watches. You get a watch and you like it, and it's that's not an objective evaluation of it. One of my very, very, very favorite watches ever, they entered it and it didn't even make the first cut. And I know that watch is 10 times better than the ones that did, but maybe they saw something that I didn't see, or that was just one of those things that happen. I don't know. Okay, so let's see what you guys have to say. All right. It's an awards competition by the industry for the industry. Your judges are sometimes questionable at best. It's like the Oscars. Follow it, have fun with it, don't take it too seriously. Well, Hans, Hugh, you got to take it seriously because it means people, they use it in their advertising. If a company makes this first cut, you'll see it splattered all over their advertising. And they just have a little logo of it. But it is consequential, and I agree it's for the industry. I'm not saying it's not. It can be used by the collector, and that's what's important. Not that I know nobody does anything for us except we have to do it ourselves. But I think that if we take the information, if we look at the ones, if X beats Y, maybe there's something about X we didn't realize that was better than Y. Also, another thing is very simple to do. You want to find out information, but it's not always complete. But when they first put the watches up, if you just click the watch and then it'll go to its own page and it'll have a lot of information about it. A lot of it is just hyperbole. I realize that. But by the same token, some of it's good information. Like you can find out the frequency, the cost of the watch, and what functions it has, and so forth. Sometimes they even tell you who else is involved in it. I've noticed recently in some of the what they call the challenge category, when I'm reading the description, I say, we got an ETA at the base, or we have this, that, or the other thing at the base, which I think is very healthy, because as collectors, we want to know what's in our watch. All right. In this watch, it's a Parmigiani movement because and probably most likely, almost absolutely made by Vaucher, which is fine with me. Okay. Okay, Brick City, I have. Okay. Brick City says never met anyone who bought a watch or hasn't. I know some people who have, and for good reason. one of the things that happens is that they're brought to our attention. We're going along minding our own business, and in some groups they have a very narrow view. They got their Rolex and the Omega and the Patek Philippe and maybe the Holy Trinity, and you know the ones that they like are the ones they can afford, which is sort of related. But then you start looking at these things, it gives you something to compare. I certainly pay attention to them, but on the other hand, I do a lot of research on any watch I buy and find out all about it. And if it's left or right, sometimes this might help me in that information gathering. Hey, Andres, Lee. Okay. So anyway, I think it's important not to come up with a stereotype one way or the other. If I look at something like Pollyanna, oh boy, it's just clean as a whistle. I think that's just as naive as saying, well, the whole thing is rigged and you can't get anything out of it. I don't think that's true. I think you can get a lot out of it, but it takes some work. And a lot of people, they look at it and say, hey, this must be rigged. I don't think it's a real good idea. The iconic category, Hugh, is really weak. To me, it's always weak. It's a bogus category. It doesn't. I think what they have it for, and this is where, if you're going to talk about something that's sort of off course, is the iconic category. And the reason for that is that, what does that mean? It means it look like watches they had in the past, or this, that, or the other thing. And then they have another one that's not competitive called the heritage. And that's another thing. They got a few categories that I think you can win a prize because they figure you deserve one because you made watches. But for the most part, you take a look right now at the men's complication or the men's, those are incredible watches and very tough competition. Lee, it's a good day for me. 2 watches came today, a G-Shock and a Vostok Amphibia. I love those, both of them. Okay. Unfair to say a watch lost in a competition. It just did not win a prize. No, it lost. I mean, this is not one of those humanity where every kid gets a participation prize. I think, Raj, I think they lost. At least they think so. You're right in this way, though, Raj. If they don't win, some of these watches are super good, but the one that did win is even super better, at least according to the judges. Now, you take one person who was telling me, I know Elizabeth Dorr, and she's been a judge for I don't know how long. She's the editor of Quill and Pad, and but then every year she goes back, wow, these are the best measure we have, and so forth. And I very much trust her judgment, but there are other people making judgments too. As far as our own watch project, we have a budgeting a GPH wheels greasing TM fund. That's what we need. We need some wheel greasers on that one. In my opinion, Geezer, a relatively informed enthusiast, we shouldn't take the GPHG too seriously. But for growing brands, I see why they would take it seriously, because they give them a lot of exposure. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's an excellent point. Yeah. Hey, Clyde, that's right. The Icon U category, that's what it is. Geezer, there's, here, if we go back, you take a look at a brand that has won an incredible number of awards, is FP Journe. Now, when they won their first award, they were like, it was Francois Paul and a few guys working for them. They were not well known. They weren't the powerhouse in high horology that they are today, and they still make under 900 watches a year. So So you have things like that you got to pay attention to. Gabriel Forsay, de Bethune, um, all of the guys in the independent watchmakers group, all of those guys, I don't know. On the other hand, Tag Heuer is, huge, and every watch in the Swatch group, everyone knows about them. So I don't know. I'm not, you have to use it as for collectors. I think it's a great information source, and what it makes you do is consider watches you wouldn't have considered otherwise. You didn't even know anything about. There's one called Behrens or something like that, Behrens. Excuse me. Somehow that one made the finalists in one of the tougher categories. It was like 2,500 Swiss francs, and the ones competing against it are, 10, 20, $100,000 watches. So that's saying something. Perhaps it's saying nothing more than we're going to give this guy. We're going to take in the 5,500 Swiss francs that we charge for the people who go to the next level. Okay. Hey, John, how you doing, man? Our coffee machine yesterday got a major cleaning, and it was one of those the kind with the little cups and stuff. And our daughter's here, and she cleaned it all up, and so I had to put it back together, and didn't get my cup of coffee in as I should. Oh, let's see. Bulgari and the Octo Finissimo have gained a lot of notice. Yeah, I agree too. And they're good, and they're excellent watches. This is something else. Excuse me. I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, one of the guys from Scandinavia, I don't know which, he said there's a Scandinavian watch group, and he had Hermes. So he wanted to talk about the Hermes. I said, wow, that watch is a fashion watch. Hey, man, it was. I mean, it's like, some people will say, well, this is what it must be. It's not a Rolex or it's not an Omega, so it must be a fashion watch. I don't know. Bulgari is a great example. I think Bulgari has done some stupid stuff. I think when they had Daniel Roth and Gerald Genta working for them, they had for a little while they had that, but Roth only stayed there a year because he was treated so badly. He just was not like. But then they used a lot of his designs, a lot of his styles. Same with Genta. The next thing you know, they're not putting them on for a while they had their names on the watch, but somehow Bulgari decided they were, they didn't need that. Well, that was a mistake. But coming out of it, they've been coming up with some really excellent watches, even though I think they've made some missteps. And I think the Finissimo that Andre just mentioned is a good example. It's an excellent watch, and it's been making the finalist. And in fact, it's won an award. Their chronograph version of it has. Is any award that's a Miss Congeniality award in a beauty pageant? We'll give you a sash. Now just go away. Yeah, I agree, Clyde. I think that's what the iconic is. And some of these other ones you have, like the Audacity Award, that's not competitive. They say, what? Somebody just sets their hair on fire. Wow, that's really cool. I don't know. Hi, John. How you doing, man? Oh boy. So the so I think it's, if we use it as a tool and treat it as that. I mean, people want something like it. Here comes Moses down from the mountain and have it written in stone by God. Well, that's probably not going to work out too well. And so, I think we have to be smart about it, but if we say, well, the whole thing is rigged, I don't buy that at all. I'm not saying that there's not some kind of undue influence, but there's a difference between the whole thing being rigged and undue influence. The Octo Finissimo is bringing back the brand rivalry for thin watches. That is always a good thing. Yeah, I agree, Hugh. There's a Piaget is another one, has great stuff with thin watches. And that the Vacheron Constantin, I think it's either in calendar or chronograph. That's another one that they've done a lot of thin stuff with too. And 28 years from now, will it have an impact on our choice of horology? It might. We don't know. We really don't. What's your favorite watch in the nominated list? Mine? Oh boy. Well, there's two kinds. One is that I can possibly afford, and there's one I can't. I don't know, for some reason, in every list, Boot & Lannon is, and I can't afford that. There's $70,000. So, but there's something about that watch. I mean, any watch that he makes that I just go, The other one, another one too, and another possibility is the Streamliner by H. Moser with the Agenor, what's it called? The Agengraph. That watch, I think, is remarkable. So I mean, there are a lot of favorites, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with the Boot & Lannon, mainly because just time only hands and nothing that I have to think about too hard. How about you? See, John? Hey, John. There are two types of fashion watches: the lower end, such as Burberry and Michael Kors, and the upper end, such as Hermes and Ralph Lauren. A latter two have Swiss movements. Well, Ralph Lauren has, I think, one Swiss movement. I think a better example of a luxury house, I'll put it that way, a luxury house would be, I agree with you on Hermes, and Ralph Lauren has one very cool movement. But some of the other ones that don't have their own movements have incredible watches. Look at Van Cleef and Arpels. What they do, they go to Agenor, and they say, hey, we need a movement. So Agenor, they got these handmade, everything movements that are just incredible. Either the movement themselves at the base, or they put it on top of another movement. More recently, they have they're having their own movements. The Agengraph is one. Another one that most people don't realize, it's totally Agenor. Yeah, let me see. It's called the I can't say the French yet. I'm practicing on it. Let me see. I think I got it written down in a way that I'll understand. But it's another watch, and that was okay. It's called the Heure d'ici et Heure d'ailleurs, which means the hour here and hour there. That whole movement is Agenor, the whole thing. Now, the interesting thing about the watch is that it was originally designed in, I think, in 1949 or something like that, by Pierre Arpels. And he designed it and had it made, or made it himself. And so he's got this watch that he made, and influencing ours, I might add. And he traveled a lot for Van Cleef and Arpels, and so he's traveling all over the place. And I think it wasn't until 2014 or so they went to they said, well, we're going to bring it out as one of our watches, and did. And so Agenor started working on it, and they said, well, we want you to make a module for it, so it have the retrograde and a jumping hour, 2 jumping hours. Well, I said, well, they couldn't do it under those circumstances because the movement was too big for it and so forth. And so they said, we'll do it though. So they made the whole movement for it. And so here you have a watch, very little known watch, other than some scallywags who are using it as a model, have done. So here you have this really great watch. It has the Van Cleef and Arpels name on it, and it was actually designed originally by Pierre Arpels, but then it was Agenor, when they took it over, they put in their own movement. So you have some like that. You also have companies like Chanel that are coming up with seriously good movements. They own what, 10% of FP Journe now. Dior is starting. I think Dior is starting to make some moves. I was looking at their watches. Chanel has a deal with Tudor and a company called Cassini or something like that. That they're making their own movements, and the latest J12 from Chanel is in-house from a Chanel design movement that they co-developed somehow with either with Tudor or just with Hennessy. High-end, what's up? I think watches have won before with outsourced movement. Oh yeah, they have. There's certainly, oh boy, there is a term that's called établissage, which is the way that watches used to be made, and who is it? Daniel Ross still makes them that way. And essentially what they do, they get a part here, a part there, and different parts and put together their own movement. And then they're the ones, at least, they will use a Vaucher movement, like Ophium. No, Ophium didn't use Vaucher. Ophium used a Techno Time one, but they, you're right, they have one in the past. So I think that, where you have like the H. Moser, and H. Moser's stuff, that half the really top watchmakers use H. Moser hairsprings. I forgot the name of it, but anyway, you have a lot of stuff going on, and I think what happened, the reason that people got all worked up about in-house movements wasn't because they're inherently better, but rather because they're charging so doggone much for the watch, and instead of like what you're really buying with a case and a dial, because everything else was done, and they pop in a cheap movement. This is why I go ballistic about Breitling and IWC and all of these other ones that they're claiming greatness, and they have some phony baloney name for the movement, but it is essentially a relatively cheap movement. Now, since ETA cut them off, which I think is the best thing that happened to the watch industry, because some of these companies, like Maurice Lacroix, they started making their own movements, realizing it was either that or do without, or go to someplace like Solita if they're and improve. Now, if a watch has, if somebody's selling me a watch and I know that it has a Vaucher movement in it, and they tell me it's got a Vaucher movement, I know it's a better watch than one that's got some mystery movement. And this is what bothers me the most, and this is why I find the information in the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève useful to find out exactly what kind of movement they're in there. In fact, one thing I wish that they would do is make the entrance say, look, you got to put down the base movement and everybody else who helped make that thing. I think that would be fine. H. Moser does it. They said, what's it called? Precise engineering at H. Moser plus Agenor made this particular chronograph called the Streamliner. I mean, the insides of it, the whole Streamliner concept and watch, I think that's another thing. I think it's really great. Okay, considering how many watches won not really in-house movements, I don't think they should penalize at all. Yeah, I think, especially if they tell you what they are. Now, you find a lot of that stuff at the lower end. Here, before we're out of time. Before we go, the one thing I want to talk about um, is including quartz watches and what they call electronic watches, essentially smart watches, in the same category. What are they thinking about? I mean, I don't mind if, like Breitling they're one of the finalists in the challenge category. That's all the watches under 4,000 Swiss francs. Okay, it's quartz. That that's like put a very different technology than an unwinding spring. If they want to have a category for quartz watches, fine, have one for quartz watches. If they want to have one for electronic watches, fine, they could have a category for that. Not a problem, but you don't. It's just an apple and oranges kind of competition when you do that. Oh, okay, enough. Hey, Tippy, how you doing? Laurent Ferrier, classic opaline green dial, has a slim chance of winning, but that watch is worth the money. I tell you, I like the design of Laurent Ferrier, but one thing I found out about his watches, you get them in gold or platinum because they're very light. I was trying some on, and I do like him. I really like his designs, but and it's probably pretty thin. His stuff, like I said, I do like, but it seems very light. Okay, Apple Watches should join in the challenge category. Oh man, I think they ought to join in the smartwatch category or something. Gerbil Force was very stunning. I agree, Tippy. I'm with you on that. More like apples and prunes. Oh, let's see. It seems like budget R.W. Smith. I don't. The one that I don't think you could call it a budget. The handmade watch that Gerbil Force has. That one is very close to a R.W. Smith, but I'll tell you, it's not budget at all. Yeah, I'll give you a buzz. Okay, guys, I just wanted to talk about this because I've seen so many people they say things that there are no basis of fact in. I mean, there's someone says, look, this is what they did, and that I think is bogus. Okay, fine. All right. If you have something that you know about, but what a lot of people are saying, they're saying things, oh, they all hang out together and so forth. That's not, all you got to do is look at the people who are in the judges, and some I would agree with and some I wouldn't, but that doesn't mean it's bogus. Okay. For us as collectors, we want to use the information and try to get something out of it. Like you say, well, I'm not going to listen to him. Who are you going to listen to? Some fanboy from, like a Parmigiani fanboy like me or Howard? It's like you want to find out as best information you can get. What's worse, bogus or bogans? Probably bogans. Okay, guys, take care. Back today, I think it's 2100 GMT. It'll be 4:00 Eastern time if you're still interested in hanging out for a while. Take care and be safe.